This 4-year-old beggar girl is kicked out of the hospital by an employee, but a millionaire doctor saw everything and does something no one expected. Watch until the end and comment on what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe if you love heartwarming stories. The September sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of Harmony Creek when Lily stumbled into the vicinity of Harmony Creek General Hospital for the first time. Her bare feet left dusty prints on the ground as she dragged along a tattered rag doll, one of its arms hanging by only a few threads. The 4-year-old had learned that the dumpsters near the hospital sometimes held treasures: stale bread crusts, bruised fruit someone had discarded, or even a cookie packet with a few crumbs left. That morning she cautiously approached the main entrance, watching the movement of people in white coats going in and out of the yellowish brick building. Her stomach had been growling for 2 days, ever since she'd found only banana peels in the trash can at the town square. Tangled brown hair partially covered her thin face, but it couldn't hide the large, expressive eyes that carried a sadness too deep for a child her age. Frank Miller, the security guard who had worked at the main entrance for over 15 years, noticed the girl's presence and felt an immediate irritation rise in his chest. It wasn't the first time she'd shown up, and her presence always generated uncomfortable comments from patients and visitors. To him, the situation represented a problem that needed to be resolved quickly and definitively. "Get out of here, you dirty kid!" Frank shouted, walking towards Lily with heavy steps. "How many times do I have to tell you that this isn't a place for beggars?" Lily recoiled instinctively, hugging her doll tighter. Her eyes filled with tears, but she couldn't move quickly enough to avoid what was coming. Frank grabbed her arm with unnecessary force, leaving red marks on her delicate skin. "You're scaring away the patients. Nobody wants to see a beggar at the hospital entrance," he continued, pushing her violently towards the street. The rag doll slipped from Lily's hands and fell on the concrete ground. The girl tried to bend down to pick it up, but Frank stopped her with another push, even stronger than the last. The sound of the impact echoed through the courtyard, attracting the attention of some people passing by, but no one dared to intervene. "And don't come back here. If I see you again, I'll call Child Protective Services to take you away from this town," the security guard threatened, picking up the doll from the ground and throwing it far away towards the gutter. It was at that exact moment that Dr. Ethan Caldwell stepped out of his silver Acura, adjusting his impeccable grey suit and checking his gold wristwatch. At 52 years old, he maintained the upright and confident posture of someone accustomed to being respected and obeyed. He was visiting from Los Angeles specifically for a private consultation with the mayor of the town, a political favor he couldn't refuse. The doctor witnessed the entire scene. He saw the child being pushed, heard the security guard's cruel shouts, and observed the despair in Lily's eyes when her doll was thrown into the gutter. For a few seconds, he stood motionless, processing a strange sensation he hadn't experienced in decades. Something inside him stirred, an uncomfortable pang in his chest that made him question his own habitual indifference. Ethan approached with firm steps, his imposing presence causing Frank to immediately stop yelling. The security guard recognized the famous doctor and felt his face burn with shame and fear, realizing he had been caught in an embarrassing situation. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but loaded with authority. "Frank, Doctor. Frank Miller," the man replied, lowering his head. "Then, Frank, explain to me why you're mistreating a child in front of a hospital." The security guard stammered an incoherent response about regulations and the institution's image, but his words sounded weak and meaningless before the doctor's penetrating gaze. Lily remained huddled near the gate, watching the scene with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Ethan walked over to where the doll had fallen, picked it up delicately, and examined it for a few moments. The toy was dirty and worn, but there was something touching about the way it had been cared for, with small handmade patches and details that showed a child's love. "Come here," he said to Lily, holding out the doll towards her. The girl hesitated, her survival instincts warning her to distrust strangers. But there was something different about this man in a suit, something that made her feel that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't hurt her like so many others had. Lily took a few hesitant steps towards the man in the suit, her eyes fixed on the doll he was holding. When she finally got close enough, she extended her trembling little hands and received her only treasure back, hugging it against her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, crouching down to be at the girl's height. "Lily," she murmured, her voice so low that he had to lean in to hear. "And where are your parents, Lily?" The question made the girl's eyes fill with tears again. She shook her head negatively, unable to form words to explain a pain that she herself didn't fully understand. Ethan observed her thin face, her dirty and torn clothes, her feet injured from constantly walking on the hot asphalt. "Doctor, you can't get involved in this situation," Frank interrupted, trying to regain some authority. "This girl is a social services problem. It's not our responsibility." Ethan stood up slowly, his icy gaze causing the security guard to take a few steps back. "Since when did mistreating a child become a security protocol? I want to speak to your supervisor immediately." In the following minutes, while Frank nervously went to find his boss, Ethan remained by Lily's side. He noticed how she flinched whenever someone passed too close, how her eyes constantly moved, looking for possible threats, how she hugged the rag doll like a protective shield. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Lily nodded shyly. Ethan searched his pockets and found only a few mints he usually carried to freshen his breath between appointments. He offered one to the girl, who accepted it with gratitude disproportionate to the small gesture. It was then that something unusual happened. As she reached out to take the mint, Lily dropped a yellowed piece of paper that was folded inside the doll's dress. The paper fell to the ground, and Ethan, on impulse, picked it up before the wind could carry it away. "Is this yours?" he asked, showing the paper to Lily. The girl looked at the document with a confused expression, as if she didn't exactly know what it was or where it had come from. Ethan carefully unfolded the paper and felt his heart race as he saw some words written by hand in a handwriting that was strangely familiar. Before he could examine the content more closely, Frank's supervisor appeared, accompanied by a woman from the town hall. The situation quickly turned into a bureaucratic discussion about protocols and responsibilities, with each person trying to get rid of the problem that Lily represented. "The girl needs to be taken to the town shelter," insisted the town hall employee, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses. "We can't let her wander the streets." "The shelter is overcrowded," replied the supervisor, "and besides, she always runs away from there. We've tried 3 times in the last month." Ethan listened to the conversation with growing irritation. They talked about Lily as if she were an object, a problem to be solved, not a child who needed care and affection. The girl remained quiet by his side, seeming to understand that her fate was being decided by people who didn't even care about her. "I'll take her with me," Ethan declared suddenly, surprising everyone, including himself. "Doctor, you can't just—" began the town hall employee. "I can. I'm a doctor. I have the financial means and the structure to take care of her temporarily, while you resolve the appropriate legal situation." The discussion went on for a few more minutes, but Ethan's influence and social status eventually prevailed. He signed some provisional papers, guaranteed that he would assume full responsibility for the girl, and before he could rethink his impulsive decision, he was walking towards the car with Lily by his side. The girl climbed into the back seat of the Acura with extreme care, as if she were afraid of soiling the beige leather upholstery. Ethan adjusted the rearview mirror to observe her during the ride and saw that she was squeezing the doll against her chest while looking out the window with a marveled expression, as if she had never seen the world from inside a car. During the 40-minute drive to his house on the outskirts of Harmony Creek, Ethan tried to process what he had just done. He had never shown particular interest in children, had never been involved in social or charitable issues. His life was organized, predictable, focused on his medical career and on maintaining the luxurious standard of living he had achieved. But there was something about Lily that stirred him in an inexplicable way. Maybe it was the silent dignity with which she endured suffering, or the way she took care of the tattered doll as if it were a treasure. Or maybe it was that mysterious piece of paper that was now folded in his pocket, waiting to be examined more carefully. When they finally arrived at the mansion, Lily got out of the car and stood at the entrance, looking at the two-story house with well-kept gardens as if she were facing a palace. Her skinny little legs trembled slightly, not from cold, but from pure intimidation in the face of so much luxury. "Let's go inside," Ethan said, gently placing his hand on her back to guide her. It was at that moment that the front door opened and Eleanor Caldwell appeared in the doorway, wearing an impeccable social dress and an expression of surprise that quickly turned into displeasure. At 48 years old, she maintained the aristocratic beauty that had won Ethan over 2 decades ago. But her clear eyes now shone with a coldness that made Lily instinctively hide behind the doctor's legs. "Ethan, what does this mean?" Eleanor asked, her voice controlled but charged with tension. "It means that this child will stay with us for a few days," Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice firm before his wife's inquisitive gaze. Eleanor descended the entrance steps with calculated movements, her high heels making noise on the polished marble. She examined Lily from head to toe with barely disguised contempt, noting every detail of the girl's shabby appearance, the torn dress, the tangled hair, the dirt accumulated under her small nails. "Ethan, have you gone mad?" she whispered, approaching her husband. "You can't just bring a beggar into our house. What will the neighbors think? And your private patients?" "She has a name. Her name is Lily," Ethan replied, feeling a growing irritation with his wife's attitude. "And she's not a beggar. She's a child who needs help." Lily watched the tense exchange of words between the adults, not fully understanding what was happening, but clearly realizing that her presence there was not welcomed by the elegant woman. Instinctively, she huddled even more behind Ethan, hugging the doll against her chest. "This is temporary," Ethan continued, "just until we resolve her legal situation. We can't leave her on the streets." Eleanor crossed her arms, her face taking on that icy expression that Ethan knew well from moments of disagreement in their marriage. "And since when do you care about abandoned children? In 20 years of marriage, you've never shown interest in having children of your own, let alone adopting orphans." The comment hit Ethan like a slap. It was true that he had never expressed a paternal desire, always prioritizing his career and lifestyle. But there was something different about Lily, something he couldn't yet explain even to himself. "Things change," he said simply. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll show her to a room." Before Eleanor could protest again, Ethan guided Lily into the house. The girl walked slowly through the entrance hall, her eyes wide open at the crystal chandeliers, the antique furniture, and the gold-framed paintings that decorated the walls. "Is this where you live?" she asked in a small voice, delicately touching a mahogany coffee table as if she were afraid of breaking it. "Yes, it is. And now you're going to live here for a while too," Ethan replied, realizing how strange the words sounded coming out of his mouth. He took her to one of the guest rooms on the second floor, a spacious room with light furniture and a window that overlooked the back garden. Lily entered the room slowly, as if she were stepping on sacred ground. "Is this my room?" she asked, incredulous. "For now, yes." Lily approached the single bed with a soft mattress and immaculate white sheets. She carefully placed the doll on the pillow and then sat on the edge of the bed, testing the softness with cautious movements. "I've never slept in such a big bed," she murmured, more to herself than to Ethan. The doctor felt a pang in his chest as he imagined where that 4-year-old girl had spent the previous nights. He left the room momentarily and returned with some clean towels, soap, and old clothes of Eleanor's that could serve temporarily. "How about a bath?" he suggested. "Afterwards we can see what's in the kitchen for you to eat." While Lily was bathing in the bathroom attached to the room, Ethan took the opportunity to examine the yellowed piece of paper he had found more closely. He sat in the armchair in his office and carefully unfolded the document. His hands trembled slightly as he recognized the handwriting. They were just a few lines written in faded blue ink. "To whomever finds this girl. Her name is Lily Silva Santos. She was born on March 15th. Her mother's name was Isabella. Please take good care of her. She only has this doll as a keepsake." The name Isabella hit Ethan like a lightning bolt. Isabella Silva Santos had been his girlfriend during his second year of medical school, a young nurse from a simple family who worked at the university hospital to pay for her studies. They had dated for 2 intense years, until social differences and pressure from his family separated them. Ethan remembered perfectly the day he ended the relationship. Isabella had tried to tell him something important, but he was so focused on his career and family expectations that he didn't listen to her. A few weeks later, she simply disappeared from the university, leaving only a note saying that she needed to return to her hometown. That had happened over 20 years ago. If Lily was 4 years old now— "Oh my God," he whispered, doing mental calculations that left him even more disturbed. At that moment he heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly folded the paper, putting it in his shirt pocket. Eleanor appeared at the office door with an even gloomier expression than before. "I need to talk to you," she said, closing the door behind her. "This situation needs to be resolved immediately." "Eleanor, we've already talked about this." "No, Ethan. You don't understand." She approached his desk, placing her hands flat on the polished wood. "I've known you for 20 years. I know when something is wrong. This child isn't just a charitable cause for you, is she?" The doctor felt his heart race. Eleanor had always been perceptive, able to read his expressions and detect when he was hiding something. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm talking about the way you look at her, the rush you were in to leave the hospital, the nervousness you've shown since you got home." Eleanor leaned over the desk. "Who is this girl, Ethan? And don't give me any Christian charity stories, because we both know you've never been religious." Before Ethan could answer, a muffled scream came from upstairs. Both ran towards the guest room and found Lily sitting on the bathroom floor, trembling and crying silently. The shower water was still running, and there were pieces of soap scattered on the wet floor. "What happened?" Ethan asked, crouching down beside her. "The water was too hot," Lily sobbed, "and I didn't know how to stop it. I was afraid of breaking something." Ethan turned off the shower and took a towel to wrap around the girl. He then noticed the marks on her back and arms, old and new scars that told a story of suffering that he preferred not to imagine. Eleanor watched the scene from the door, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. When Ethan looked up at her, he saw something new in his wife's expression, a cold determination that made him feel a chill of apprehension. In the following 2 weeks, the Caldwells' routine changed completely. Ethan cancelled his trips to Los Angeles and began to work more from home, always finding excuses to stay close and observe how Lily adapted to her new environment. The girl was curious but cautious, touching objects with reverence and eating in small portions as if she feared the food might run out at any moment. Eleanor, in turn, adopted a subtle but effective strategy of making Lily's life uncomfortable. During breakfast, she served stale bread and almost sour milk only to the girl, claiming that children don't need luxuries. When Ethan wasn't around, she spoke to Lily in a harsh tone, complaining about the noise of her footsteps or the way she breathed. "You're making too much mess in the bathroom," Eleanor said, watching Lily brush her teeth with excessive care. "And stop talking to yourself. That's crazy talk." The girl had developed the habit of talking quietly to her rag doll, especially at night, when the silence of the big house frightened her. To her, the doll was her only confidant, the only one who understood her fears and insecurities. "Isabella," she whispered to the doll before going to sleep, repeating the name she had heard Ethan murmur a few times. "Do you think she'll come back for me?" Ethan had spent hours researching Isabella on the internet, calling old college colleagues and trying to track down her whereabouts. He discovered that she had worked in some rural hospitals in Pennsylvania after leaving the university, but her trail disappeared about 5 years ago. No one knew what had happened to her. The obsession with discovering the truth consumed his thoughts. He even hired a private investigator, claiming to Eleanor that it was only to regularize Lily's legal situation. But his wife wasn't foolish and realized that there was something much deeper motivating her husband. "You're spending a fortune on this story," she confronted him one night when Ethan was working in his office late. $3,000 for a private investigator? To resolve the situation of some random orphan? "She's not some random orphan," Ethan replied, without looking up from the papers. "She's a child who needs help, and we can afford to offer it." "We can?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "I don't remember agreeing to any of this. This house is turning into a real mess because of a girl who can't even eat properly or sleep without making noise." It was true that Lily had frequent nightmares. Almost every night Ethan was awakened by her muffled screams. He ran upstairs to her room and found her huddled in bed, trembling and mumbling incoherent words about people who hurt her. "Don't let them take me," she begged, clinging to Ethan's arm. "Please, don't let them." "No one's going to take you," he promised, sitting on the edge of the bed and stroking her hair until she calmed down. "You're safe here." But Eleanor watched these nightly scenes with growing irritation. To her, every moment of affection that her husband showed to Lily was a betrayal of the marriage they had built. She began to make acidic comments about the situation during meals. "Ethan, you're getting too attached to this child," she said one morning, cutting an orange with brusque movements. "It's not healthy for any of us." "Healthy is leaving a 4-year-old girl on the streets?" he retorted, watching Lily eat her cereal in silence. "Healthy is recognizing our limitations. We're not parents, Ethan. We've never been, and we can't start now with a child who has obvious problems." Lily stopped eating and looked up at Eleanor with wide eyes. "Do I have problems?" she asked in a small voice. "Of course not," Ethan said quickly, casting a warning glance at his wife. "You just need time to adjust." But the damage was done. Lily spent the rest of the day even quieter than usual, watching the adults with a worried expression, as if she were trying to figure out exactly what the problems she represented were. That afternoon, while Ethan was at an appointment in the town, Eleanor decided to accelerate her plans. She approached Lily, who was playing alone in the garden with her doll. "Lily, I need to talk to you," she said, sitting on the nearby bench. The girl looked up, immediately tense. She had learned to recognize the tone of voice that preceded unpleasant moments. "Do you like living here?" Eleanor asked, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I like it," Lily replied hesitantly. "But you know this is temporary, don't you? Dr. Ethan explained that you can't stay forever." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "He said I was safe here." "And you are, honey. But only for now. People like you need to go to special places with other children like you. Places where they'll better understand your problems." "I don't want to leave," Lily murmured, hugging the doll tightly. "Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to," Eleanor said, getting up. "That's how life works." That night, Lily couldn't eat dinner. She sat at the table, poking at her food with her fork, lost in thoughts that were too heavy for a child her age. Ethan noticed her strange behavior, but before he could ask what was happening, the phone rang. It was the private investigator with news that would make the doctor question everything he thought he knew about Isabella and about the past. The call lasted only a few minutes, but when Ethan hung up the phone, his face was pale and his hands were trembling slightly. "Who was it?" Eleanor asked, feigning disinterest. "Work," Ethan lied, but his voice cracked on the last syllable. The investigator had found old hospital records that completely changed the story. Isabella hadn't simply disappeared after college. She had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital 5 years ago after being found in a state of shock on the streets of a small town. And according to medical records, when she entered the institution, she was pregnant. Ethan looked at Lily, who continued to play distractedly with the food on her plate, and felt the world spin around him. If Isabella had been hospitalized for 5 years and Lily was 4 years old, that means that... "Ethan, are you okay?" Eleanor asked, noticing her husband's sudden paleness. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on Lily, looking for familiar traits that he might have ignored before. The shape of her eyes, the way she tilted her head when she was thoughtful, even the delicate shape of her small hands. "Is Daddy sick?" Lily asked, using for the first time a word that made Ethan's heart practically stop beating. Eleanor dropped her fork on the plate with a metallic noise that echoed through the silent dining room. The silence that followed the word "Daddy" was deafening. Eleanor stared at her husband with an expression that mixed shock and a terrible understanding that she had tried to avoid for weeks. Ethan remained motionless, as if the word had the power to turn him into stone. "Sorry," Lily murmured, realizing that she had said something wrong. "I didn't mean to—" "No, no," Ethan said quickly, coming out of his trance. "You didn't do anything wrong." But Eleanor had already gotten up from the table, throwing the napkin on the plate with unnecessary force. "I need some air," she announced, leaving the dining room with stiff steps. Ethan was left alone with Lily, who watched him with big, frightened eyes. The girl had sensed the tension in the air, even without fully understanding what had caused it. "Is she mad at me?" Lily asked, her voice almost a whisper. "No, honey. She's processing some things." Ethan approached her chair. "How about we go up to your room? We can read a story." In the following minutes, while reading a children's book that he had bought especially for Lily, Ethan struggled against the thoughts that swirled in his mind. The physical resemblance, the dates, the name written on the paper, everything pointed to a conclusion that terrified him and thrilled him at the same time. When Lily finally fell asleep, he went downstairs to find Eleanor in the office, drinking a glass of red wine and staring at the wall with a somber expression. 20 years, she said without looking at him. 20 years of marriage, and now I find out that my husband brought his bastard daughter into our house. Eleanor, I didn't know. Didn't know? She turned to face him, her eyes shining with a cold fury. "Don't underestimate me, Ethan. I saw how you look at her. I saw how you react to her smiles, and now I know why." Ethan sat in the opposite armchair, running his hands over his face. "Even if it's true, it doesn't change anything. She's a child who needs care." "Doesn't change anything," Eleanor laughed bitterly. "It changes everything. For all these years you told me you didn't want children. You said our life was complete. And now I find out that you already had a daughter somewhere." "I didn't know she existed until 2 weeks ago," Ethan insisted. "Isabella never told me." "Isabella," Eleanor repeated, tasting the name as if it were poison. "The little nurse from college. The one you sighed over when we were newlyweds?" The comment hit Ethan like a punch. It was true that he had talked about Isabella in the early years of marriage, when he was still processing the end of that relationship. Eleanor had always shown jealousy, but he thought that was in the past. "That was over 20 years ago," he said. "It's not relevant now." "Not relevant." Eleanor stood up abruptly. "My husband brought the daughter of his ex-girlfriend into our house, and you think it's not relevant?" The discussion continued for over an hour, with accusations and resentments accumulated over the years coming to the surface. Eleanor revealed that she had always felt that she was Ethan's second option, that he had married her for social convenience, not for true love. "You know what hurts me the most," she said, tears of anger streaming down her face. "It's seeing you show more affection for a stranger in 2 weeks than you've shown for me in years." Ethan couldn't refute that accusation because he knew there was truth in it. Something in Lily had awakened a part of him that had been dormant for decades, an ability to love unconditionally that he had buried under layers of ambition and pragmatism. That night, the two slept in separate rooms for the first time in years. Ethan stayed up late, listening to the noises of the house and thinking about the implications of everything he had discovered. Around 3 in the morning, he heard footsteps in the hallway and assumed it was Lily's usual nightmares. But when he went up to check, he found a scene that chilled him to the bone. Eleanor was in the girl's room, whispering something in her ear while she slept. His wife turned away quickly when she noticed his presence. "What were you doing?" he asked, keeping his voice down so as not to wake Lily. "Checking if she was okay." "I heard noises," Eleanor replied, but her tone was not convincing. "What kind of noises?" "She was talking in her sleep, saying strange things about not wanting to leave." Ethan watched Lily, who was sleeping restlessly, her small hands clutching the doll against her chest. There was something different in her expression, a tension that wasn't there when she had fallen asleep. "Eleanor, if you're doing anything to make her more scared—" "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "I would never hurt a child." But Ethan had long since learned to read between the lines of his wife's words. She hadn't said she wasn't scaring Lily, only that she wouldn't physically hurt her. It was a subtle but significant distinction. The next day, Lily woke up quieter than usual. During breakfast, she barely touched her food, pushing the pieces of toast around the plate with mechanical movements. "Aren't you hungry?" Ethan asked, worried. "Not much," she murmured, avoiding his gaze. "She must be nervous," Eleanor commented casually. "Children get like that when they know changes are coming." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "What changes?" "Well, her situation can't remain indefinite forever. Sooner or later, someone from social services will come looking for answers." The rest of the day passed in palpable tension. Ethan tried to work in his makeshift home office, but he couldn't concentrate. Every time he looked out the window, he saw Lily playing alone in the garden, more withdrawn than ever. Around 4 in the afternoon, the phone rang. It was the private investigator with more information about Isabella. The man had managed to contact the psychiatric hospital where she had been hospitalized. "Doctor, I have important news," the voice on the line said. "The patient Isabella Silva Santos was discharged from the hospital 3 months ago. She was looking for information about a daughter she had lost a few years ago." Ethan felt his heart race. "She's looking for Lily." "According to the records, yes, and there's something else. She left a contact address in Philadelphia. She's living in a boarding house in the city center." When Ethan hung up the phone, his hands were visibly trembling. Isabella was alive, had recovered, and was looking for her daughter. The daughter who was now sleeping in the guest room of his house, starting to call him Daddy. He looked out the window and saw Eleanor talking to someone at the front gate. It was a man in a suit he didn't recognize, carrying an official briefcase. When Eleanor pointed towards the garden where Lily was playing, Ethan felt that his life was about to completely fall apart. Ethan ran down the stairs, reaching the front door at the exact moment that Eleanor was saying goodbye to the man in the suit. The stranger was already walking away when he arrived, but he managed to see an official plate on the car parked on the street. "Who was that man?" he asked, trying to control the anxiety in his voice. "Someone from the city," Eleanor replied with excessive naturalness. "They came to check on the girl's situation." "And what did you tell him?" "The truth, that we're taking care of her temporarily, but that we can't maintain this situation indefinitely." Ethan felt his blood boil. "You had no right to make that decision alone." "I have every right. This is my house too, and I didn't agree to turn it into an orphanage." At that moment, Lily appeared, running from the garden, her big eyes fixed on Ethan's tense face. "The man talked to me," she said, panting. "He asked if I was happy here." "And what did you answer?" Ethan asked, crouching down to be at her height. "I said yes. But he said that maybe it would be better for me to be with a real family, with children my age." Eleanor watched the scene with a satisfied expression. See, even the professionals agree that it's not healthy for her to stay here. A real family, Ethan repeated, the words sounding bitter in his mouth. And what are we? We're nothing, Eleanor said harshly. You're a successful doctor who had a moment of misguided compassion. I'm your wife, who's trying to save our marriage. And she looked at Lily coldly. She's a child who needs to be with people who are adequate to take care of her. Lily began to cry silently, the tears running down her cheeks without her making any sound. It was the kind of silent crying of someone who had learned that making noise only brought more trouble. Come here, Ethan said, picking her up. Let's go to your room. As he climbed the stairs with Lily, he could feel Eleanor's gaze burning his back. The situation had reached an unsustainable point, and he knew that difficult decisions would need to be made soon. In the room, Lily sat on the bed hugging her doll, her sobs finally audible. Did I do something wrong? She asked. Why doesn't Aunt Eleanor like me? Ethan sat down beside her, looking for words that could comfort a 4-year-old without lying to her. Sometimes adults get confused about what's right to do. It has nothing to do with you. Are you going to send me away? The question was like a stab in his heart. I never want you to leave, but sometimes situations are complicated. Because I'm not your real daughter? Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. How to explain to a 4-year-old that she could be exactly that, his real daughter, but that the circumstances made everything infinitely more complicated. Family isn't just about blood, he said finally. It's about who takes care of you, who loves you, who wants to see you happy. So you're my heart, Daddy. If you want me to be, yes. Lily snuggled against him, and Ethan felt a peace he hadn't experienced in weeks. But the tranquility was short-lived. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of Eleanor, who appeared at the door with a determined expression. Ethan, I need to talk to you. Now. He kissed Lily's forehead and left her playing with the doll, following his wife to the office. As soon as he closed the door, Eleanor attacked. This has to stop. You're getting morbidly attached to a child who we don't even know is your daughter. Morbidly? Ethan laughed bitterly. Caring for an abandoned child is morbid. When it's destroying our marriage, yes. Eleanor crossed her arms. Either you resolve this situation or I will. What does that mean? It means I called social services. They're going to pick up the girl tomorrow. Ethan's world collapsed. You can't do that. I already did. And you know what else? I told them about your paternity suspicions. I suggested they do a DNA test. Why? Why would you do that? Because I need to know the truth. If she's your daughter, at least we'll have clarity on the situation. If she's not, you can overcome this obsession and we'll go back to our normal life. Ethan let himself fall into the armchair, processing the implications of what his wife had done. And if she is my daughter, what happens then? Then we'll have to make a decision about our marriage. The coldness in Eleanor's voice frightened him. In 20 years together, he had never seen her so determined to destroy something. It was as if Lily's presence had awakened a dark side of her that he didn't know existed. You're doing this out of jealousy of a 4-year-old child. I'm doing this for me, for us, for everything we've built together. Eleanor approached him. Ethan, think rationally. Even if she is your daughter, you can take care of her in other ways. Pay for a good school. Make sure she has an adequate adoptive family. Listen to what you're saying. You're talking about abandoning a child. I'm talking about recognizing our limits. We're not parents, we've never been, and we can't pretend to be now. That night, Ethan barely managed to sleep. He stayed awake planning alternatives, thinking of ways to protect Lily from the arbitrary decision that Eleanor had made. Around 5 in the morning, he made a decision that would change everything. He silently entered Lily's room and found her awake, sitting at the window, looking at the garden in the dim light of dawn. Couldn't sleep? He asked. I had a bad dream. I dreamed that some men came to get me and took me far away from you. Ethan felt a pang in his chest. Lily, I need to tell you something important. Your real mother, she may be alive. The girl's eyes widened. My mother? I knew her a long time ago. Her name is Isabella. And if I'm right, maybe you can see her soon. Is she going to want me back? I'm sure she will. Lily was silent for a long moment, processing the information. And you? Are you still going to be my heart daddy? Always, Ethan promised, no matter what happens. 2 hours later, when Eleanor went down for breakfast, she found a note on the kitchen table. Ethan had left with Lily, taking only a few clothes and the rag doll. The note said simply, I went to find her mother. When we get back, we need to talk seriously about our future. Eleanor crumpled the paper tightly, her eyes shining with a fury that she could no longer disguise. She picked up the phone and dialed a number that she had saved the day before. Hello? Is this social services? I want to report a kidnapping. The 3-hour drive to Philadelphia passed in tense silence. Lily dozed in the back seat, hugging her doll, while Ethan drove with his knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. He knew he had made an impulsive decision that could have serious legal consequences, but the alternative of letting Lily be taken by social services without even trying to find Isabella was unthinkable. The address that the investigator had provided led them to a modest boarding house in the city center, a 3-story building with a facade yellowed by time. Ethan parked in front and looked at the windows, trying to imagine which one might house the woman who had changed his life 2 decades ago. Are we there? Lily asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. We're here. Your mother may be here. The girl straightened up in the seat, suddenly awake. What's she like? Ethan tried to recall details of Isabella that time hadn't erased. She has dark hair like yours, and kind eyes. She was always very loving. What if she doesn't like me anymore? That's impossible. Mothers always love their children. They climbed the narrow staircase to the 2nd floor, following the numbers until they found apartment 204. Ethan took a deep breath before knocking on the door, his heart beating so hard that it seemed to echo through the silent hallway. Slow footsteps approached from the other side of the door. A female voice, weaker than he remembered, asked, Who is it? Isabella. It's me, Ethan Caldwell. The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. When the door finally opened, Ethan was faced with a woman who was simultaneously the Isabella of his memories and a stranger marked by suffering. She was thinner, with grey strands in her dark hair and premature wrinkles around her eyes. But when her gaze fell on Lily, something lit up in her face. "Oh, my God!" she whispered, her hands trembling as she leaned against the doorframe. "Lily!" The girl hid behind Ethan's legs, watching the unknown woman who claimed to be her mother. "Are you my mommy?" Isabella knelt on the hallway floor, tears running down her cheeks. "Yes, my little one. I'm your mommy. Why did you leave me?" The innocent question hit Isabella like a slap. She looked at Ethan for support, her eyes reflecting a pain that he immediately recognized. "I didn't want to leave you," she said in a broken voice. "I got very sick and couldn't take care of you properly, but I thought about you every day." Can I hug you?" Lily asked timidly. The hug that followed was hesitant at first, but gradually became tighter as mother and daughter recognized each other. Ethan watched the scene with conflicting emotions. Relief at having reunited the family, but also a pang of loss as he realized that Lily now had her real mother back. Come in," Isabella said, getting up and wiping away her tears. "We have a lot to talk about." The apartment was small and simple, but clean and organized. Isabella served orange juice for Lily and coffee for Ethan, her hands still trembling slightly with the emotion of the reunion. "How did you find her?" she asked, watching Lily explore the new environment. Ethan told her about the meeting at the hospital, about the paper found in the doll, about the weeks that followed. He omitted the details about his conflicts with Eleanor, focusing on how Lily had adapted and flourished under his care. "She seems well," Isabella observed. "Healthier than when—" "Than when what?" Isabella sighed deeply. "Than when I had to leave her. I was going through a very difficult time, Ethan. After I left college, I tried to start my life over, but things went from bad to worse. When Lily was born, I was already in a precarious situation. Why didn't you ever look me up? I could have helped. Do you remember how we broke up? Your family made it clear that I wasn't good enough for you. After a few years, I saw in the newspapers that you had married someone from your social class. I thought it would be better to leave the past where it was." Lily approached Isabella with the doll in her hands. "Do you remember this doll?" Isabella held the worn toy carefully, as if it were made of crystal. "Of course I remember. I made it for you when you were born. I used pieces of my favorite dress. I always knew she was special," Lily said, smiling for the first time since they arrived. At that moment, Ethan's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but he answered instinctively. "Dr. Ethan Caldwell?" an official voice asked. "Yes, it's me. This is Investigator John Davis from the Philadelphia Police Department. We received a report of a kidnapping involving a minor. Are you with the child Lily Silva Santos?" Ethan felt his blood run cold. "May I know who made this report?" "Your wife, Dr. Caldwell. She claims that you took the child without legal authorization." Isabella, who had been listening to the conversation, turned pale. "Kidnapping? Ethan, what's going on?" "It's complicated," he said, hanging up the phone. "My wife, she didn't agree with Lily's presence in our house." "And now? Are they going to take me away from you again?" Lily asked, her eyes filling with tears. "No one's going to take you away from me again," Isabella said with surprising determination. "I'm your mother. I have rights." "But can you prove that legally?" Ethan asked. Isabella went to a small closet and took out a yellowed folder. "I have her birth certificate, medical records from the birth, photographs from the first few months. I kept everything, even when I was sick." Ethan's phone rang again. This time it was Eleanor. "Ethan, have you completely lost your mind?" she shouted as soon as he answered. "The police are looking for you. Come home now with the girl, and maybe I can convince them it was just a misunderstanding." "I'm not coming back, Eleanor. And Lily is with her mother now." "Her mother? You found that woman?" "I found her, and she has all the documents proving that Lily is her daughter." The silence on the line lasted several seconds. When Eleanor spoke again, her voice was more controlled, but charged with a coldness that made Ethan shiver. "So you've chosen, haven't you? You chose a stranger and a child who we don't even know is your daughter over your 20-year marriage." "I chose to do what's right." "What's right?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "Ethan, you're so blinded by your obsession that you can't see what you're doing. You're destroying everything we built together for a romantic fantasy of a family that was never your responsibility." "Maybe you're right about this being a fantasy," Ethan said, looking at Lily playing with Isabella's hair. "But it's the first time in years that I've felt truly alive." "Then so be it," Eleanor said, her voice taking on a dangerous tone. "But know that when reality hits and you discover that you can't sustain this idealized situation, I won't be here waiting anymore." She hung up, leaving Ethan alone with his choices and their consequences. Isabella approached him, gently placing her hand on his arm. "Ethan, I don't want you to destroy your life because of us." "My life was already destroyed a long time ago," he replied. "I just hadn't realized it yet." 2 hours later, when Investigator John Davis finally found them at the boarding house, he discovered a situation very different from what had been reported. Instead of a kidnapping, he found a mother reunited with her daughter and a man who had facilitated that reunion. Isabella's documents proved her maternity, and Lily confirmed that she was happy and safe. "Dr. Caldwell," the investigator said, putting away his papers, "technically you committed some irregularities by leaving with the minor without official authorization. But considering the circumstances and the fact that she is now with her biological mother, I'm going to close the case." When the investigator left, the three were alone again. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the day. Isabella covered her with a blanket and sat next to Ethan. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you two start your lives over, and I need to figure out who I really am when I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. You can always be part of her life if you want, like a very special uncle." Ethan smiled sadly. "I would really like that." But deep down, he knew that the price of his choices would be much higher than he imagined. Eleanor didn't make empty threats, and their marriage, along with the comfortable life he had built, was about to completely fall apart. 3 weeks had passed since Lily's reunion with Isabella, and the small boarding house in Philadelphia had become a temporary haven, where mother and daughter tried to rebuild their lost bonds. Ethan visited them daily, bringing groceries, new toys for Lily, and secretly money to help with the basic expenses that Isabella's limited income couldn't cover. The adaptation wasn't easy. Lily, who had become accustomed to the luxury of the Caldwell's mansion, now slept on a thin mattress on the floor of the tiny room she shared with her mother. Isabella worked part-time at a nearby pharmacy, earning just enough to pay the rent and buy basic food. "Mommy, why is our apartment so small?" Lily asked one morning, watching Isabella prepare coffee on the 2-burner electric stove that occupied half of the tiny kitchen. "Because that's what we can afford for now, my dear, but little by little our situation will improve." Lily nodded, with the premature maturity of a child who had learned not to make demands. But Ethan noticed the growing frustration in her eyes. She missed the big backyard where she could play, her spacious room, and especially the feeling of security that the Caldwell's house provided. "Uncle Ethan," she said one afternoon, when he arrived for one of his daily visits, "when are we going back to your house?" The question hit the doctor like a stab. "Lily, you live with your real mother now. This is your home. But I miss my room there, and the good food, and being able to run in the garden." Isabella listened to the conversation from the kitchen, and Ethan saw the pain spreading across her face. She was trying to do her best for her daughter, but she knew that her limited financial conditions didn't offer the comfort that Lily had experienced. "My little one," said Isabella, approaching and crouching down to her daughter's height, "I know that our life here is different from what you were used to. But we're together now, and that's the most important thing. I know, Mommy, I like being with you. I just miss some things." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Isabella and Ethan talked in the tiny living room, their voices low so as not to wake the girl. "She's not happy here," Isabella said, silent tears running down her face, "and I can't blame her. How to compete with the life you offered her? Isabella, this isn't about competition. You're her mother. That's worth more than any luxury." "Worth? Then why does she ask every day when she's going back to your house? Why does she cry quietly at night when she thinks I'm not listening?" Ethan had no answer to those questions. The truth was that he was also struggling against conflicting feelings. Seeing Lily adapting with difficulty to the new reality made him question whether he had made the right decision in reuniting mother and daughter. "Maybe I should have left her with you," Isabella murmured, "at least until I get in a better situation." "Don't say that. You two need to be together." "Need to? Or is that what we think is right?" Isabella got up and walked to the small window that overlooked the building's inner courtyard. "Ethan, during the years I was hospitalized, I idealized the reunion with my daughter so much. I imagined it would be natural, that it would be enough for us to be together for everything to fall into place. But the reality is much more complicated. These things take time." "Time?" Isabella turned to face him. "She's 4 years old, Ethan. Every day of unhappiness in her life is too precious to be wasted." The next morning, Ethan was surprised by an unexpected call. It was George Thompson, an elderly neighbor who lived near his mansion in Harmony Creek. "Dr. Caldwell, sorry to bother you, but I needed to talk to you about something important." "What happened, Mr. Thompson?" It's about that girl you brought home a few weeks ago, Lily, isn't it? Ethan felt his heart race. Yes, what about her? Well, I used to live next door to the house where she lived before she ended up on the streets. I saw a lot of things that weren't right. I kept some objects that belonged to her mother, thinking they might be useful someday. What kind of objects? Letters, photographs, documents, things that the person who took care of her almost threw in the trash when the girl disappeared. Ethan arranged to meet with George in the late afternoon. When he arrived at the elderly man's modest house, he was greeted with a cup of strong coffee and a shoebox full of memories that completely changed his perspective on Lily's story. The girl's mother lived next door for almost 2 years, George explained, opening the box. She was a kind woman, but very sick. She talked to herself, sometimes didn't recognize her own daughter. The woman who took care of the two of them had no patience at all. What woman? Doris Miller, a second cousin of the girl's mother. She received money from the government to take care of the two of them, but treated both of them very badly. George showed photographs of Isabella in a pitiful state, visibly ill and confused. In some images, Lily appeared next to her mother, always with a frightened expression and dirty clothes. "Why didn't you report the situation?" Ethan asked. "I tried, Doctor. I called Child Protective Services 3 times, but Doris always managed to fool the inspectors when they showed up. And when the situation became unsustainable, she simply had Isabella hospitalized and put Lily on the street." "Put her on the street? What do you mean?" "She left the girl in the town square one morning and never came back to get her. That's when Lily started wandering around town, sleeping wherever she could, eating what she found." Ethan felt nauseous as he imagined a 3-year-old child abandoned to survive alone on the streets. The pieces of the puzzle finally fit together. Lily hadn't been abandoned by her mother, but by a cruel woman who took advantage of Isabella's mental illness to receive government benefits. "There's one more thing," George said, taking a sealed envelope from the box. This letter arrived for Isabella a few days before she was hospitalized. It was never opened because she could no longer read properly. Ethan took the envelope with trembling hands. The sender was the University Hospital of Philadelphia, and the date on the postmark was 5 years ago. Inside, he found a test result that made his world spin. It was a DNA test requested by Isabella 5 years earlier, comparing genetic material from her with a sample she had obtained from Ethan, probably a strand of hair or something similar that she had kept from when they were dating. The result was unequivocal. Lily Silva Santos was the biological daughter of Ethan Caldwell. "Oh my God," he whispered, rereading the document several times. "Doctor, are you okay?" George asked, worried about the doctor's sudden paleness. Ethan couldn't answer immediately. For weeks, he had suspected the possibility, but seeing the confirmation on the official paper was completely different. Lily was his daughter, his biological daughter, who had spent years suffering on the streets because of the neglect of other people. "Mr. Thompson, can I take these things with me?" "Of course, Doctor. That's what I kept them for. I always knew that someone would come looking for the truth someday." On the drive back to Philadelphia, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the implications of the discovery. Lily wasn't just a child for whom he had developed paternal affection. She was literally his daughter, conceived during his relationship with Isabella in college, but the revelation brought with it new dilemmas. Should he tell Isabella immediately? How would she react to learning that she had spent 5 years looking for him, trying to reveal a truth that would change everything? And above all, what did this discovery mean for Lily's future? When he arrived at the boarding house, he found mother and daughter eating instant noodles at the tiny kitchen table. Lily ran to hug him, as she always did. But this time Ethan held her with a different intensity. She was his daughter, his own daughter. "Uncle Ethan, are you okay?" Lily asked, noticing the strange expression on his face. "You seem sad." "I'm not sad, little one. Just Surprised by some things I discovered today? Isabella watched him with curiosity, but didn't ask questions. She had learned to respect the moments when Ethan needed to process information in silence. That night, after putting Lily to sleep, Ethan made a decision that would change everything again. He showed Isabella the DNA test result. Her reaction was exactly what he expected. First shock, then tears of relief, and finally an intense anger for having spent years trying to contact him without success. 5 years, she said, her voice choked. 5 years I tried to find you to tell you this. Do you know what I went through, what she went through? Isabella, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. You were too busy building your perfect life to worry about the consequences of our relationship. The conversation that followed was painful and necessary. Isabella told about the years of struggle, about how she had tried to raise Lily alone while dealing with mental health problems, about the despair that led her to accept the help of Doris, a decision that almost cost her daughter's life. When the sun rose over Philadelphia, both were exhausted, but finally completely understood the situation. Lily was Ethan's daughter. Isabella was a mother who had fought hard to care for her daughter, but who still needed support to recover completely. And Ethan was a father who had discovered his paternity too late to avoid years of suffering, but still in time to change the future. The discovery of Ethan's biological paternity brought an immediate change in the dynamic between the three. Lily, without knowing the complex details of the situation, realized that something important had happened by the way the adults looked at her and talked in whispers when they thought she wasn't paying attention. "Why are you talking quietly?" she asked one morning while playing with her doll on the floor of the living room. "Are you talking about me?" Ethan and Isabella exchanged glances. They had spent the night discussing how to approach the situation with the 4-year-old girl, without overwhelming her with information that she wasn't yet mature enough to fully process. "We're talking about good changes that may happen in our lives," Isabella said, sitting on the floor next to her daughter. "How about I tell you a story about a girl who discovered she had more people who loved her than she imagined?" Over the next hour, with simple and carefully chosen words, Isabella explained to Lily that Ethan wasn't just a kind man who had taken care of her. He was her real father, someone who hadn't known of her existence but had always been present in his heart through the love he felt for her mother. "So, is Uncle Ethan my blood daddy too?" Lily asked, her big eyes shining with a mixture of confusion and joy. "Yes, my darling." "And does that mean he's not going away anymore?" The innocent and direct question struck Ethan deeply. For weeks he had visited mother and daughter daily, but always with the feeling of being a well-intentioned intruder in their lives. Now, discovering that he had legal rights and responsibilities over Lily changed everything. "It means we're a real family now," he said, picking Lily up in his arms, "and families take care of each other." But turning that promise into practical reality proved more complicated than any of them had anticipated. Eleanor, who had remained ominously silent for the previous weeks, resumed contact through a lawyer with a proposal that infuriated Ethan. "She wants what?" he asked over the phone, his voice echoing through the tiny rented house. "Your wife is willing to agree to an uncontested divorce, but demands 70% of the couple's assets," Eleanor's lawyer explained. "She claims she was emotionally betrayed and deserves compensation for the public humiliation." "Emotionally betrayed? I took care of an abandoned child." "Dr. Caldwell, legally speaking, you withheld relevant information from your wife and made unilateral decisions that affected the marriage." She has solid arguments. When Ethan hung up the phone, Isabella was watching him with concern. "Trouble with the divorce? Eleanor wants to leave me with practically nothing. The mansion, the investments, even part of my clinic. Ethan, I don't want you to ruin yourself because of us. You're not a cause. You're my family." That afternoon, while Lily slept, the two sat down to make realistic calculations about the future. Even losing 70% of his assets, Ethan would still have enough resources to ensure a comfortable life for the three of them. But there would be significant sacrifices. I'd have to sell the private practice in Philadelphia and focus only on the office here in Harmony Creek, he said, making notes on a piece of paper. And we'd probably have to live in a smaller house, at least initially. Are you sure you want to do this? Isabella asked. We're talking about permanent changes in your whole life. Ethan stopped writing and looked at her. Isabella, for 20 years, I lived a life that looked perfect on paper, but deep down was empty. I had money, status, a beautiful wife, everything society considers success, but I was never truly happy. And now, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I think about is seeing you two. When Lily calls me Daddy, I feel a joy I've never experienced before. For the first time in decades, my life has real purpose. 2 weeks later, Ethan signed the divorce papers. Eleanor got the mansion, most of the financial investments, and half of the Philadelphia clinic. In return, he obtained his freedom and joint custody of Lily, a complex legal arrangement that recognized Isabella as the biological mother and primary custodian, but guaranteed Ethan full parental rights. You won't regret it? Isabella asked on the night the documents were finalized. Never, he replied without hesitation. But the challenges were just beginning. With significantly reduced financial resources, they needed to make practical decisions about housing and work. Ethan found a modest house to rent on the outskirts of Harmony Creek, close enough to his office for him to continue seeing local patients, but far from the mansion where he had lived with Eleanor. It's small compared to what you were used to, said the real estate agent, showing the 3-bedroom house with a simple yard. But it's well located, and the rent fits the budget. Lily ran through the empty rooms, her laughter echoing off the walls. Mommy, look! Can this room be mine? And there's a tree in the backyard. Seeing the genuine joy of his daughter as she explored the simple house made Ethan realize that he had made the right decision. Lily didn't need luxury. She needed stability, love, and the security of knowing that she was with people who would never abandon her. Do you like the house? He asked, crouching down beside her. I love it. And the best part is that now me, you, and Mommy will live together for real. The move to the new house happened on a sunny Saturday in October. Ethan had hired a small moving company to transport the few pieces of furniture he had managed to keep after the divorce, while Isabella and Lily organized the clothes and personal items they had accumulated during the months in the boarding house. Need some help? Offered George Thompson, the elderly neighbor who had become an important ally in the journey of discovering the truth about Lily. Thanks, Mr. Thompson. Can you carry this box of children's books? They're Lily's favorites. Throughout the day, the small family worked together to transform the empty house into a home. Isabella, who had gotten a part-time job at a nearby pharmacy, took over the organization of the kitchen and bedrooms. Ethan assembled the furniture and installed the basic equipment, and Lily supervised everything, offering opinions on where everything should go. The doll will stay on my dresser, she announced, carefully placing her most precious treasure on the small piece of furniture that Ethan had bought especially for her, so she can see me sleeping and know that I'm safe. At the end of the day, when the house was finally habitable, the three sat on the living room floor, sharing a pizza they had ordered to celebrate. It was a simple domestic scene, completely different from the luxurious life Ethan was used to. But as he watched Isabella laughing at something Lily had said, he knew that he had found something much more valuable than money or social status. "Daddy," said Lily, naturally using the word that still made Ethan's heart race. "Tomorrow, can we plant flowers in the garden? We can plant as many flowers as you want, and make a swing on the tree. Also, and have a dog." Ethan looked at Isabella, who smiled and shrugged. "Why not? Every family needs a dog." That night, after putting Lily to sleep in her new room, Ethan and Isabella sat on the small porch of the house, watching the stars over Harmony Creek. The silence between them was comfortable, full of possibilities and hopes. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Isabella asked. "I'm absolutely sure," Ethan replied. "For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I should be." But even in the tranquility of that moment, neither of them imagined that the real challenges of building an unconventional family were just beginning. The first few months in the new house brought a routine that Ethan had never experienced. He would wake up early to prepare breakfast while Isabella got ready for work at the pharmacy, then take Lily to the local elementary school where she had enrolled. The afternoons were dedicated to the office, seeing local patients with simple but important problems, very different from the complex surgeries he performed in Philadelphia. "Dr. Caldwell," said Mrs. Maria, a 70-year-old woman who suffered from arthritis, "you seem happier lately. There's a different light in your eyes." "Thank you, Mrs. Maria. I think I've finally found my place in the world." It was true. For the first time in decades, Ethan felt that his life had purpose beyond professional success. Every smile from Lily when he came home, every quiet conversation with Isabella during dinner, every simple family moment was worth more than all the medical awards he had received. But the adaptation also brought unexpected challenges. Lily, accustomed to being the center of attention during the traumatic months before, sometimes showed jealousy of the attention that Ethan dedicated to Isabella. And Isabella, still recovering from years of mental instability, occasionally had episodes of anxiety that left her unable to take care of domestic responsibilities. "Mommy is sad again?" Lily asked one morning when she found Isabella crying silently in the kitchen. "Sometimes adults get sad for no specific reason," Ethan explained, hugging his daughter, "but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Can I do something to make her feel better? How about we make pancakes for breakfast? She loves pancakes." During the following months, the three learned to navigate the ups and downs of family life. Ethan discovered the patience he never knew he had. Isabella gradually regained confidence in her maternal ability, and Lily blossomed in an environment where she finally felt truly safe. The first major crisis came in late November, when Lily fell ill with pneumonia. The illness, which could have been treated easily with the resources of Ethan's old life, became a source of significant financial stress for the budget-strapped family. "The treatment will cost almost $2,000, said the doctor at Harmony Creek General Hospital. "She needs to be hospitalized for at least a week." Ethan looked at the money in his bank account. Enough to cover the treatment, but it would mean delaying rent payments and cutting essential expenses for the next few months. "No matter the cost," he said, "do everything that is necessary." During the week that Lily was hospitalized, Ethan and Isabella took turns at her bedside, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs and eating cheap sandwiches from the hospital cafeteria. It was a period of extreme anxiety, but also of family unity, as they had never experienced before. "Daddy," whispered Lily one night when she was beginning to recover, "you're not going to leave me ever, are you?" "Never," he promised, holding her small hand. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here. And Mommy too. And Mommy too." When Lily was finally discharged from the hospital, the family returned home more united than before. The experience of almost losing their daughter had shown them all what really mattered in life. "You know what impresses me the most," Isabella said one night after putting Lily to sleep, "is how you've changed. The Ethan I knew in college was ambitious and career-focused. This Ethan is more human." "People change when they find something worth changing for," he replied, but not everything was tranquility in the family's new life. In December, they received an unexpected visit that brought disturbing echoes of the past. Eleanor appeared at the door on a rainy afternoon, driving her luxury car and wearing a fur coat that cost more than the monthly rent of the house where Ethan now lived. "May I come in?" she asked, her tone polite but cold. Ethan hesitated, but Isabella nodded in agreement. Lily was at school, so at least the girl wouldn't be exposed to the tension that Eleanor's presence would certainly bring. "Impressive how you managed to adapt to simplicity," Eleanor commented, observing the modestly furnished room with thinly veiled disdain. "What do you want, Eleanor?" "I want to offer you one last chance to come to your senses." She sat down in the armchair carefully, as if afraid to contaminate herself. "The divorce isn't completely finalized yet. You can turn back. I have no interest, even if it means completely losing your medical reputation. Because that's what's happening, Ethan. Your colleagues in Philadelphia are commenting on your midlife crisis. They say you abandoned a brilliant career for a romantic fantasy. What my former colleagues think doesn't matter to me anymore." Eleanor stood up and walked to the window, observing the simple garden where Ethan had planted flowers with Lily. And when the novelty wears off, when you realize that playing family doesn't replace professional achievement, what will happen to these two people who depend on you? The question hit Ethan more deeply than he cared to admit. During the last few months, he had dedicated himself so much to his new family life that he hardly thought about the long-term future. What if Eleanor was right? What if this phase was just a temporary, emotional reaction? "Ethan," said Isabella softly, "can I talk to you in the kitchen?" They walked away, leaving Eleanor alone in the room. In the kitchen, Isabella held Ethan's hands and looked directly into his eyes. "If you want to go back to her, I understand," she said. "I won't blame you for choosing the life you built for 20 years. Isabella, let me finish. During the months we've been together, I've seen how you strive to be happy with our simple life. But I also see moments when you look out the window with a distant expression, as if you're thinking about other possibilities. I don't want other possibilities. I want this life with you. Are you sure? Because if you stay with us only out of obligation or guilt, that won't be good for anyone, especially for Lily." Ethan held Isabella's face between his hands. "Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. For 48 years of my life, I pursued successes that didn't make me truly happy. In the last few months, I've discovered what it's like to wake up every day eager to see the people I love. I've discovered what it's like to have genuine pride in something, not a successful surgery or a medical award, but seeing my daughter learning to read, or seeing you smiling after a hard day at work. And the sacrifices, the money you lost, the career you abandoned. They weren't sacrifices. They were investments in the only thing that really matters, our family." When they returned to the living room, Eleanor was flipping through a photo album that Isabella had left on the coffee table. They were simple photos: Lily playing in the garden, the three of them having a picnic in the park, everyday moments of an ordinary family. "Do you really think this will last?" she asked, closing the album. "I believe so," Ethan replied, "and even if it didn't last, it would still be worth every moment." Eleanor headed for the door, pausing only to make one last venomous comment. "When you get tired of playing family man and want to come back to the real world, don't count on me. This was your last chance." After she left, Ethan and Isabella remained silent for a few minutes, processing the tension of the visit. When Lily arrived from school, she found them sitting on the couch, embracing and with thoughtful expressions. "Why do you look sad?" she asked, dropping her backpack and running to join the embrace. "We're not sad," said Ethan, kissing the top of her head. "We're just grateful for everything we have." "I'm grateful too," said Lily. "Today at school the teacher asked us to draw our family, and I made the prettiest drawing in the class." "Can I see it?" Isabella asked. Lily ran to fetch the drawing from her backpack. It was a simple but touching image: 3 figures holding hands in front of a small house, all smiling under a bright yellow sun. In the corner of the paper, she had written in her childish handwriting, "My family that makes me happy." At that moment, looking at his daughter's drawing, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that he had made all the right decisions. The following year brought a stability that none of the 3 had experienced before. Lily excelled in school, making friends for the first time in her life and participating in activities that a normal child her age should have. Isabella had been promoted at the pharmacy and gained increasing confidence in her ability to be a present mother. And Ethan discovered simple joys that he had missed during decades of professional ambition. "Daddy, can you teach me to ride my bike?" Lily asked one Saturday morning, pointing to the pink bicycle he had bought her for her 5th birthday. "Of course I can. But aren't you afraid of falling? If I fall, you'll pick me up, right?" The absolute trust in his daughter's voice touched Ethan deeply. Throughout his medical career, he had saved lives and cured diseases, but he had never experienced the pure and simple responsibility of being the person in whom a child trusts completely. During the following weeks, weekend afternoons were dedicated to bike lessons in the backyard. Ethan ran alongside Lily, holding the seat as she pedaled with increasing determination, her laughter echoing through the neighborhood. "I did it, Daddy! I'm riding alone!" she shouted on the day she finally managed to keep her balance without help. "You did it, my champion!" Isabella watched from the kitchen window, smiling as she watched father and daughter celebrating together. In recent months, she had noticed how Ethan had completely transformed. The serious and controlled man she had met in college had given way to someone spontaneous, affectionate, and genuinely present in family life. "He looks 20 years younger when he's with her," she commented to Mr. Thompson, who had become a regular visitor to the family. "It's the power of a child," replied the old man. "They remind us of who we really are beneath all the layers that adult life puts on us." But the tranquility of the new life was shaken in May when Ethan received a call that changed everything again. It was from a hospital in Philadelphia, offering him the position of chief of surgery, exactly the position he had dreamed of throughout his career. "Dr. Caldwell, we know that you've been through some personal changes recently," said the medical director. "But your professional reputation remains impeccable. This is a unique opportunity. I appreciate the interest, but I have no plans to return to Philadelphia. The salary would be triple what you currently earn, and we offer a complete benefits package for your entire family." After hanging up the phone, Ethan sat in his office for an hour, processing the offer. It was everything he had wanted professionally. Recognition, prestige, a salary that would solve all the family's financial problems, but it would also mean leaving the simple life they had built in Harmony Creek. That night, during dinner, he decided to share the proposal with Isabella and Lily. "Is Philadelphia far from here?" Lily asked, stopping eating her macaroni and cheese. "Very far. We would have to move there. And I would have to leave my school. And my friends." The worried expression on his daughter's face made Ethan realize that she was reliving the fears of abandonment that she had carried for so long. "It would be a big change for all of us," he admitted. "Ethan," Isabella said carefully, "this is an important opportunity for you. You shouldn't reject it just because of us. You're not a cause. You're my priority. But what if in a few years you regret having refused? What if you start to resent us for losing that chance?" The question echoed through the following weeks. Ethan found himself divided between two worlds, the professional life he had abandoned and that now called him back, and the family life he had built with so much care. The deadline to respond to the hospital was 1 month, and each passing day made the decision more agonizing. "You've been very quiet lately," Lily observed one night when he was putting her to sleep. "Are you worried about something?" "A little, yes." "Is it because of the job in Philadelphia?" Ethan was surprised by his daughter's insight. "How did you know that?" "I heard you and Mommy talking, and I saw that you keep looking away when you think nobody's watching." "And what do you think I should do?" Lily thought seriously before answering. "I think you should do what makes you happiest." "But I'm happier when you're here with us." The simple and honest answer from his daughter touched Ethan more deeply than all the rational arguments he had considered. That night, he made his final decision. The next morning, He called the hospital in Philadelphia. "I appreciate the offer very much, but I can't accept it. My life and my family are here in upstate Pennsylvania." "Are you sure, doctor? This opportunity may not come again." "I'm absolutely sure." When Isabella learned of the decision, she hugged him with tears in her eyes. "You won't regret it?" "Never. I've discovered that real success is not measured by the money you earn or the titles you have. It's measured by the quality of the relationships you build and the positive impact you have on the lives of the people you love." But the decision to refuse Philadelphia brought an unexpected consequence. The following week, Ethan received a visit from Dr. Frank Miller, director of Harmony Creek General Hospital. "Ethan, I have a proposal for you," said the older doctor, sitting down in the simple office. "We need to modernize our surgery department, and we know of your reputation. How about becoming our medical consultant?" "Consultant? Help train our team, implement new procedures, raise the standard of care." "The salary wouldn't be like Philadelphia, but it would be significantly better than your current situation." The proposal was perfect. It would allow Ethan to use his medical expertise to make a real difference in the community where he lived, without sacrificing the family life he had built. "And can I continue with my private practice?" "Of course." It would only be 3 days a week at the hospital. That night, the family celebrated the new opportunity with a special dinner. Lily was radiant, knowing that her father would no longer have to worry about financial issues and at the same time would remain present in her daily life. "Daddy," she said, hugging him after dinner, "now you can help other people like you helped me." "How so, sweetie?" "You found me when I was lost and took care of me. Now you can do that with other people at the hospital." The simple wisdom of his daughter made Ethan realize that he had found exactly his place in the world. Not as a famous surgeon in Philadelphia, but as a doctor who made a real difference in the lives of ordinary people while building a family based on true love. "You know what else?" said Lily, already sleepy. "I think my doll liked knowing that we're going to stay here forever." "Why do you say that?" "Because she spent as much time lost as I did. Now she has a family too." That night, watching Lily sleep peacefully in her bed, with the worn doll hugged against her chest, Ethan knew that all the difficult decisions, all the financial sacrifices, and all the radical changes in his life had been worth it. He had found something more precious than wealth or prestige. He had found his true family and his true purpose in life. And for the first time in decades, he was genuinely at peace with himself and with the choices he had made. The future still held challenges and surprises, but Ethan now knew that he would face everything alongside the two people he loved most in the world. 2 years had passed since Ethan began working as a consultant at the Harmony Creek General Hospital, and the family's life had found a perfect rhythm of happiness and purpose. Lily, now 7 years old, was one of the best students in her class and had developed a passion for drawing that made her spend hours creating comic books about a family that saved lost children. "Daddy, look what I drew," she said one afternoon, running to show him her newest work. "It's about a doctor who finds a girl on the street and discovers that she is his daughter." Ethan examined the drawing carefully. It was surprisingly detailed for a 7-year-old, clearly showing the influence of her own story on her daughter's artistic imagination. "It's very beautiful, Lily. You have a lot of talent." "The teacher said I should participate in the city's art contest. Can I?" "Of course you can. Let's register you tomorrow." Isabella watched the interaction from afar, smiling at the naturalness that father and daughter had developed over the years. She herself had blossomed during this period, being promoted to manager of the pharmacy and discovering a confidence in herself that she had lost during the difficult years of mental illness. "You know what I'm thinking?" she said to Ethan that night, after Lily was asleep. "Maybe it's time to formalize our situation." "What do you mean?" "Marriage, Ethan. We've been a family for 3 years. Lily sees us as parents. Why don't we give her the legal security of married parents? The proposal took Ethan by surprise, not because he didn't want to marry Isabella, but because he had become so accustomed to the current situation that he hadn't thought about the need to formalize it. Are you sure? Aren't we doing well as we are? We're great, but think about Lily's perspective. She's already lost so many important people in her life. If we formalize our union, she will be sure that we are a permanent family, not just a temporary arrangement. During the following weeks, Ethan considered the proposal with increasing seriousness. Isabella was right. Lily deserved the emotional security of knowing that her parents were committed to each other permanently. The final decision came unexpectedly, during a situation that tested once again the strength of the family they had built. In October, Isabella fainted at work and was rushed to the hospital where Ethan worked. "What happened?" he asked, running to the emergency room. "Apparently it was just exhaustion and stress," explained the attending physician. "But we want to do some more detailed tests to be sure." During the hours that Isabella was hospitalized for observation, Lily showed more maturity than her 7 years, taking care of the emotionally shaken father and demonstrating a deep understanding of the situation. "Daddy, Mommy will be okay," she said, holding his hand in the waiting room. "Remember when I got sick and you took care of me? Now it's our turn to take care of her." "You're right, sweetie. Families take care of each other." "Always," confirmed Lily, "because we chose each other to be family, right? That's stronger than normal families." The wisdom of his daughter touched Ethan deeply. Lily had articulated something that he felt but had never managed to express. They had chosen each other mutually, through difficult circumstances and conscious decisions, creating bonds that were stronger than those formed only by biology or social convention. When Isabella was discharged the next day, the tests had confirmed that it was only exhaustion and that she needed more rest. Ethan made a decision that would change everything once again. "Isabella," he said, kneeling beside the hospital bed, "would you do me the honor of marrying me?" "Ethan, you don't have to. It's not about needing. It's about wanting. I want to marry you not out of obligation or convenience, but because you are the person with whom I choose to share my life, because together we create something beautiful and real." The tears in Isabella's eyes were all the answer he needed. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I want to marry you." Lily, who had watched the whole scene from the chair next to the bed, began to clap enthusiastically. "Are we going to have a real wedding, with a white dress and cake?" "We're going to have the wedding you two want," Ethan promised. 3 months later, on a sunny January morning, Ethan Caldwell and Isabella Silva Santos were married in the small church in Harmony Creek. The ceremony was simple but moving, with Lily as the flower girl, Mr. Thompson as the best man, and a small congregation of friends from the community who had followed the family's extraordinary journey. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," said the priest, smiling at the couple who radiated genuine happiness. During the simple party that followed in the backyard, Lily approached her parents with a special gift, a framed drawing showing the three of them as superheroes, with the caption, "My family that saves people." "It's for you to remember," she explained, "that you saved me when I was lost, and now you save other people every day." Ethan hugged his daughter with intense emotion. Throughout the process of finding Lily, reuniting with Isabella, and building a family, he had thought he was saving other people. Only now did he realize that, in fact, they had saved him. "Lily," he said, "do you want to know a secret?" "I do. You and your mom saved me much more than I saved you. Before I met you, I was lost too. Lost in a life that seemed good on the outside, but was empty inside. And now I've found my place in the world, next to you." That night, after the guests had left, and Lily had finally fallen asleep, exhausted by the emotion of the day, Ethan and Isabella sat on the porch of their simple house, watching the stars over Harmony Creek. Can you believe the journey we've taken to get here? Isabella asked, resting her head on her husband's shoulder. Sometimes it seems like a dream, he replied. 3 years ago, I was a wealthy but lonely man, married to a woman who didn't truly love me, living a life that had no real meaning. Today, I am a man with less money, but infinitely richer in everything that really matters. And Lily, how do you think she feels? I think she finally understood what it means to have a real family. Not because we were imposed on her by circumstances, but because we chose each other mutually, day after day. 5 years later, Lily won first place in the National Children's Art Contest with a series of drawings about unconventional families. Ethan had become medical director of Harmony Creek General Hospital, transforming it into a regional reference point. Isabella opened her own pharmacy and specialized in personalized care for low-income families. And on the wall of the living room of the house in Harmony Creek, framed with care, was the first gift Lily had given her parents on their wedding day, the drawing of the three of them as superheroes, with the rag doll drawn alongside, finally at peace, after so long lost. You know what impresses me most in this whole story? Ethan said to Isabella one night, 10 years after that first meeting at the hospital, is that it all started with a simple act of compassion for an unknown child. And that act changed 3 lives forever. 4 lives, corrected Lily, now a 15-year-old teenager, entering the room with a mug of hot chocolate. You always forget the doll. She found a family too. And she was right. The worn rag doll, which had been the only treasure of an abandoned girl, now occupied a place of honor in Lily's room, surrounded by dozens of other toys and memories of a finally happy childhood. It was the perfect symbol of a truth that Ethan had learned. Sometimes the most precious things in life come to us wounded and mistreated, but with love, patience, and dedication, they can turn into the most valuable treasures we possess. The girl who had been found wandering the streets of Harmony Creek had become the center of a family based on true love. And the doctor who thought he had everything had discovered that he only really had something when he learned to give everything for those he loved. It was a story of mutual salvation, of second chances, and of how love can transform even the most desperate situations into something beautiful and lasting. And it continued to be written, day after day, in the simple but extraordinary life of a family that had chosen each other against all odds. 15 years had passed since that fateful day when Ethan found Lily at the Harmony Creek General Hospital. The girl who once wandered the streets with only a rag doll was now a 19-year-old young woman, graduating in psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, specializing in childhood trauma. Her thesis, entitled Resilience in Early Childhood, How Love Transforms Scars into Strength, had been chosen as the best in the department. I can't believe my daughter is graduating in 2 months, Ethan said to Isabella one March morning, watching Lily prepare for another day of internship at the city's Children's Rehabilitation Center. She grew up so fast, agreed Isabella, preparing breakfast in the kitchen that had been renovated 3 times over the years, always maintaining the simple charm that characterized the family home. It seems like yesterday that she arrived here with that shabby doll. The doll, by the way, continued to occupy a special place in Lily's room, now carefully preserved in a glass display case that Ethan had made as an 18th birthday gift. It was no longer a toy, but a powerful symbol of the journey they had all taken together. "Mom, Dad," said Lily, coming down the stairs with her study folder, "I need to talk to you about something important after I get back from my internship. It's about my future." The serious tone in his daughter's voice made both parents exchange worried glances. During all these years, Lily had always been open about her plans and dreams. What news would be so important that it needed a formal conversation? "Is everything okay, honey?" Isabella asked. "Yes, it is. Actually, it's better than okay. But it's something that will affect all of us. So I want you to be prepared." After Lily left for university, Ethan and Isabella spent the whole day speculating about what she might want to discuss. Their minds ran through all the possibilities. Maybe she had decided to do graduate studies in another city, or maybe she was dating someone seriously that they hadn't met yet. Ethan, now 67 years old, had become a respected figure not only in Harmony Creek, but throughout the region. His work at the Harmony Creek General Hospital had transformed the institution into a center of excellence, attracting young and talented doctors who wanted to learn from his humanized approach to medicine. He had published 3 books on community medicine and was frequently invited to lectures in other cities. Isabella, at 55, had expanded her pharmacy to include a support center for families in vulnerable situations. Her most ambitious project was a temporary shelter program for children at risk, which had already benefited more than 200 families over 5 years. "You know what I'm most proud of?" Ethan said to his wife while they had lunch, "is seeing how our story has inspired other people to open their hearts to children in need." "Are you referring to the pharmacy program?" "Not only that. Remember Dr. Kevin, who arrived here last year? He told me that he decided to quit his job in Philadelphia and come work in the countryside after reading my first book. And Nurse Carla, too. She said that our family showed her that it's possible to have a meaningful medical career without giving up her personal life. It's gratifying to know that our journey has touched other people," agreed Isabella. "But sometimes I wonder if we did everything right with Lily. If we didn't overburden her with expectations because of our story." "Why do you say that?" "Because she has always been so mature, so aware of her past. Sometimes I'm afraid that she feels obliged to be perfect to compensate us for everything we did for her." It was a concern that Ethan also secretly carried. Lily had grown up knowing that she was special, not only to them, but to the community that followed her transformation. She received regular invitations to talk about resilience in schools and community events, and always accepted with grace and impressive maturity. That afternoon, when Lily returned from her internship, she found her parents waiting anxiously in the living room. She sat in the armchair that had always been hers since she was little, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "First, I want you to know that this is the most important decision of my life, and that I thought a lot before making it," she began. "I received an offer to do a master's degree in child psychology at Harvard University." The silence that followed was filled with conflicting emotions. Pride in the international recognition of his daughter's talent, but also apprehension about the possibility of her moving so far away. "Harvard," repeated Ethan, impressed. "Lily, that's extraordinary. How did you get that opportunity?" "My supervising professor sent my thesis to some international contacts. The professor who runs the trauma studies program at Harvard was interested in my work and offered me a full scholarship." "And you want to accept?" Isabella asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want to, but not for the reasons you might be thinking." Lily leaned forward, her intense gaze fixed on her parents. "I don't want to go because I'm dissatisfied with my life here, or because I want to run away from you. I want to go because I discovered what my purpose is in life." "What is it?" Ethan asked. "I want to study innovative treatment methods for children who have experienced trauma similar to mine. I want to develop protocols that can be applied in low-income communities across the country. I want to use my story and my knowledge to help thousands of children who are lost like I was." Lily's explanation continued for more than an hour. She had researched extensively about child rehabilitation programs around the world and discovered that the United States was decades behind in terms of methodology and resources. Her proposal was to study for 2 years at Harvard, then return to implement a research and treatment center in upstate Pennsylvania. "You taught me that our responsibility doesn't end with us," she said. "You saved one girl, but imagine how many other girls are out there waiting for someone to find them. I want to be part of the solution to that problem." Ethan felt tears in his eyes as he heard his daughter articulate a life mission that perfectly mirrored the values that he and Isabella had tried to convey to her over the years. "And how long would you be gone?" Isabella asked. 2 years for the masters. Maybe another year if I decide to do a doctorate as well, but then I would definitely return to the United States. 3 years, murmured Ethan. That's a long time. I know, Dad. And that's the hardest part of the decision. You are the most important people in my life. The idea of being away from you scares me a lot. But you need to do this, Isabella said suddenly, surprising both her husband and her daughter. Lily, this opportunity is exactly what you need to achieve your dreams. We cannot be obstacles to your growth. Mom, your mother is right, agreed Ethan, although his voice trembled slightly. During all these years, we raised you to be independent and follow your own paths. It would be selfish of us to want to keep you here for our own need. The conversation that followed was emotional and practical at the same time. They discussed logistical details, planned regular visits, and mainly reaffirmed the unconditional love that would always exist between them, regardless of physical distance. "There's one thing I want to do before definitively accepting the proposal," Lily said at the end of the conversation. "I want to visit the places where I lived before you found me." "Why?" Ethan asked, worried about the painful memories that this could awaken. "Because I need to close some cycles. During all these years, I avoided completely confronting my past. But if I'm going to work helping other traumatized children, I need to make sure that I've completely resolved my own issues." A week later, the three made an emotional journey through the places that had marked Lily's early life. They visited the house where she had lived with Isabella and Doris, now occupied by a different family who took good care of the property. They passed through the square where Lily had slept some nights, transformed into a well-maintained playground, and finally, they arrived at the Harmony Creek General Hospital, where it had all begun. "It's strange to be here knowing the whole story," Lily commented, observing the entrance where John Davis, the former security guard, had mistreated her so many years before. "This place represents so much suffering and so much joy at the same time." "How do you feel?" Isabella asked. "Grateful," replied Lily without hesitation. "Grateful for having gone through all this, because it made me who I am today. Grateful for you having found me. And mostly, grateful for having the opportunity to transform my pain into strength to help other people." That afternoon, Lily made her final decision. She would accept the scholarship to Harvard, but with one condition. During the 2 years of the Masters, she would maintain a blog documenting her experiences and learnings, sharing this knowledge with American professionals who did not have access to the same resources. "I want my education to benefit not only me, but a whole generation of American children who need help," she explained. 3 months later, on a sunny June morning, Ethan and Isabella were at the Philadelphia airport, saying goodbye to Lily for the first time in 15 years. The young woman boarding the plane to Massachusetts was completely different from the scared girl they had found so many years ago, but carried with her the same values of compassion and determination that had characterized her journey. "Take care of yourselves," she said, hugging her parents tightly. "And remember, this is not a goodbye. It's just a temporary, see you soon." "We are very proud of you," said Ethan, his voice choked with emotion. "You are going to make a difference in the lives of many children," added Isabella, "just as you made a difference in ours." When the plane finally took off, taking Lily to a new chapter in her life, Ethan and Isabella remained in the departure lounge for a few minutes, processing the historical moment. "She'll be okay," Isabella said, more to herself than to her husband. "She will be. We raised her to be strong and independent. Now she will use that strength to help other people. And us? What will our life be like without her around?" Ethan smiled, taking his wife's hand. "We will continue doing what we have always done, loving each other and making a difference in the lives of the people around us." and we will eagerly await the day she returns home, full of new knowledge and stories to tell. 6 months later, Lily's blog had become a national reference for professionals working with traumatized children. Her posts combined academic rigor with human sensitivity, offering practical insights based both on her personal experiences and on her research at Harvard. "Mom, Dad," she said during a weekly video call, "you're not going to believe what happened. The Department of Health contacted me. They want me to present a project to implement child trauma treatment centers in 10 major U.S. cities." "That's amazing, honey," exclaimed Isabella. "It's recognition of the extraordinary work you're doing," added Ethan. "But you know what makes me happiest? It's knowing that I'm honoring everything you taught me. Every child I help recover is a tribute to the love you gave me." That night, after hanging up the call, Ethan and Isabella sat on the porch of their house, watching the stars over Harmony Creek. The house was quieter without Lily's vibrant presence, but it was full of happy memories and the certainty that they had fulfilled their mission as parents. "Do you regret anything?" Isabella asked. "Nothing," replied Ethan without hesitation. "Every decision we made, every sacrifice we made, every difficult moment we faced, it was all worth it to see our daughter become the extraordinary woman she is today. And now we continue our mission. Lily is changing the world on a larger scale, but we can continue changing lives here, one person at a time." It was true. Even with Lily away, Ethan and Isabella maintained their work supporting vulnerable families. The pharmacy's support center had expanded, and Ethan had created a mentorship program for young doctors interested in humanized medicine. A year later, when Lily returned home for summer vacation, she brought with her not only academic knowledge, but also a global perspective on how love and determination can transform lives in any culture or context. "You know what impresses me most at Harvard," she said during a family dinner. "It's how our family's story resonates with people from all over the world. My advisor said that our experience is a perfect case study on how unconditional love can heal deep traumas." "Our story has become international?" Ethan asked, surprised. "Not only our story, but the methods you instinctively use to help me. The patience, the consistency, the combination of firmness with affection. All of this is being studied as a model for foster families and therapists." At that moment, the three understood that their journey had transcended their personal lives. They had become, without planning it, an example of how true love can overcome any obstacle and transform even the most desperate situations into stories of triumph and hope. It was a legacy that would continue impacting lives far beyond Harmony Creek, far beyond upstate Pennsylvania, spreading throughout the world through the work of Lily and all those who were inspired by their story of love, loss, reunion, and redemption.